This webinar system has made my clients over $1 million in the last 5 months. It took me thousands to learn. We've gone through a lot of trial and error in my agency, Full Stack, to learn this and present it to you guys. And you're going to be getting a full A to Z overview. This is the only video on webinars really you should ever need. But first of all, why should you listen to me? Well, we've done webinars for clients that have done 120K in literally the space of 3 days. Literally this month, this is a dashboard from this month. Today is January 14th. Since the first, we ran one webinar and it did $64,000 in cash collected. These are payments I've gotten for clients as their kind of growth operators for webinars, set up fees for webinars, as you can see here. I've consulted on a couple different webinars in some different industries as well. So Blake, 100,000 a week. Luke Tran, we did a done for you webinar for Honest Brands that did $130K cash collected. And the biggest webinar I've ever consulted on, 240K in 2 weeks over here. Now that you can trust me, why should you run a webinar in the first place? Well, there's a huge reason why webinars are coming back in 2026. It is because there is a huge lack of trust in the market. You've seen Alex Hormozy, you've seen Iman Gadji, you've seen Shelby Sapp, all of them are running webinars. And the first reason for that is because it's a new conversion mechanism. A lot of these people, Iman, he's got plenty of people who know about him on YouTube. But if he just ripped a call funnel, how many people know nowadays that when they get on a call, it's going to be with the closer who try and get them to sell their left kidney to close? A lot of people. So it serves as a new conversion mechanism to hoover up leads in your pipeline that haven't yet bought yet with a new trust building conversion mechanism. People who've already had calls, people on your email list, people who've been just consuming your content passively get a chance for a free live training where you can build trust and where you can build watch time. A lot of people say, someone needs to consume 7 hours of your content to buy from you, to become a customer. Well, on our webinars, we typically get around 2 hours of average watch time in the room, or 1.5 hours to 2 hours. And that exponentially increases the trust. And also it's an opportunity for the creator, the offer owner, to show their expertise live, which just leads to higher show rates, higher close rates, higher PIF rates, and a much quicker buying process, especially when you're running ads as well. Also, efficiency. If you're selling to hundreds of people at once compared to having to get on closing calls with everyone individually, it just makes everything so much easier selling one to many. And also, webinars are very, very replicable. Once you've run one webinar with some paid advertising, with the right systems in place that we're going to discuss, it's very, very easy to do it over and over again. So whether you're a coach, whether you're a growth operator, whether you run an info agency and have a portfolio of clients, you should be running webinars because they are insane. Now, in terms of how the flow of a webinar looks, typically it looks something like this, right? You have all of your traffic coming from YouTube, Instagram, email, ads, TikTok, whatever it may be. You send them all to a registration page. After they register, they get sent to a thank you page where after that, they are nurtured through a email and SMS sequence and a WhatsApp community normally before they show up to the webinar, where the conversion happens either on the webinar, where they pay on the webinar, or they go ahead and book a call with a closer and convert there. So that's kind of the flow of a webinar. Now, before we get into like landing pages and strategy and the presentation and all of that, the first thing that you want to have established for webinars is AI documents. So for your client or as an offer owner, you need to understand how the offer owner speaks, the brand story, the exact pain points and desires, and try and use sales call recordings for this. Use all the client results into one document for like a testimonial document, and truly understand the ICP. So make sure you understand that you understand individually every single one of their pain points, and ask AI to make a brief overview of the ICP with the exact transformation they want to make and all of the stuff that you can see here. When you add all of these documents to a Claude project, it just makes the whole webinar process so much easier. We're not going to be using AI to write everything, but if you can knock out emails, if you can knock out kind of structuring the offer and just have an AI that has all of the context on the offer itself, it just makes things so much easier. So after you've done that, you're going to obviously decide your offer. There are typically 3 main ways to give an offer on a webinar. The first being kind of the classic direct checkout, where you get people to sign up to a webinar, you do the trading on the webinar, and then you send them, okay, if you want to buy this, this is the offer. Go ahead and buy it now on a checkout page. Typically, this is best for offers under $2,000. Over $2,000, you're much better off going to a call. So typically the offer will be between $500 and $1,000. The benefits are there's no sales team required, so you have higher profit margins. You will typically, though, have lower conversion rates, and it's very, very difficult to sell, a premium offer just on a checkout page. So what you can also do is like go for like a deposit webinar where you ask for like a 1K deposit if you have a premium offer, and then DM close, or if needed, get a closer involved. But that's kind of the direct checkout webinar. My favorite type of webinar is the kind of book a call webinar. Essentially, so you are selling a normal high ticket offer, typically above $2,000, $2,500 to $10,000. You send them to a webinar. Then on the webinar, the CTA is to apply. And then after the application, obviously, the qualified leads can book in a call, and then the closer closes them on the sales call. And these sales calls are typically like onboarding calls because people are so warm after webinars. This allows for one-on-one objection handling and personalized offers and personalized positioning on the sales call while still selling one-to-many on the webinar. It does have slightly more complexity and a slower sales cycle than direct checkout. But typically it is my favorite because you can essentially filter your traffic. So using a type form, you can essentially say anyone with this budget, we're going to sell them this lower tier. Anyone with this budget, they can book a call and we're going to sell them the high ticket. So it does allow you to sweep up the whole audience. Another thing you can do, and this is what I typically recommend doing if you're going to direct checkout, is have some sort of hybrid model where you start with like a 297 or 997 direct checkout offer. And then one of the deliverables of this offer is a one-on-one onboarding call with a CSM or a closer, where essentially you use that onboarding call to upsell qualified leads into the high ticket, into the 5K, into the 10K offer, which monetizes the full audience, similar to what we try to do in the book a call method, whilst also capturing those high ticket buyers. But it requires very dialed in closers, a very dialed in offer structure in terms of the initial offer has to convert super well, and then the upsell has to seem really good as well to make the most out of this system. So what it looks like is obviously a checkout page, and then maybe 95% of people will take that onboarding call, and then maybe 20% will be upsold. And this is actually what Iman Gadzhi did in his recent 5-day live event webinar. Another thing to keep in mind with the offer is that you need to have bonuses included. Webinars are a one-time opportunity to create extreme value and trigger someone to buy. This is what I meant when I spoke about, converting leads who you've got their email, they're in your pipeline, they're viewing your Instagram stories, but they just don't have a reason. They don't have that kick up the ass to go ahead and actually buy what you're offering. Whereas with a webinar, because you're giving them so much free value, because you are, they see free value, they want to attend, you've given them so much free value, and then you make a customized, tailored, amazing offer with bonuses, with a discount, all of this on the webinar, it allows so many more people to convert. And a golden rule in terms of bonuses on your offer, your bonuses should feel better than the main offer itself. And it's very important to have clarity on your bonuses and on your offer before you start writing the webinar. So some examples of bonuses that convert well are AI being really hot right now, any sort of AI automation tools and done for you kind of setups, offerings in the offer. Anything done for you normally converts really well. That, normally you don't get this, but we're offering this done for you only for webinar people. Extra one-on-one group calls always does well. And then exclusive PDFs, SOPs, bonuses, access to certain talent pools, these sort of things work really well as bonuses. And one thing to remember is that you can often repackage things that already exist inside of your delivery, but simply frame them as bonuses on the webinar. And this is all really down to like perceived value. So, you have like your value equation, your perceived value versus your actual value is kind of what your perceived value is probably one of the most important things when it comes to people making a buying decision. So after you have your offer in place, then you obviously want to start building out the landing page side of things for your webinar. You're probably not going to get many people to sign up to a webinar if your landing page looks like shit, especially if you're not selling a premium offer. And in terms of benchmarks for sign up rates on your landing pages, typically you want to aim for at least a 30 to 40% sign up rate on cold traffic and above 40% for warm. Now on your registration page, this is what you're going to need. You're going to need a headline, a subheadline, potentially a VSL, and then a register button, and making it very, very clear that it's a live event with scarcity. For example, get my free ticket, there's only X amount of free tickets remaining. That's the kind of framework we use across clients. And you can see another one here with the same sort of focus of headline, subheadline, timer, very clear that it's a live event, and limited spots with the scarcity. For this offer now, for the YouTube automation one, we do have a VSL, and typically you will see increased performance and better leads come through when you do have a VSL on the landing page, but it isn't 100% completely needed. So if you're looking to launch quickly, typically you launch the webinar about 7 days before the webinar itself, about a week. So if you're looking to launch quickly, you can get away with not having a VSL. After the kind of hero section like this, you're going to have your agenda section. So what are people actually going to, why should people even show up to the webinar? So the first one is normally going to be typically about breaking beliefs, and we'll get into this about how you actually structure a webinar later on. Then you're going to have your core value propositions and what you're actually going to be teaching in the webinar training section. So this is the training. Typically we go for a 3-pillar kind of training framework, which takes them through 3 steps that they need to do to achieve their desired outcome. And what you can do is use AI on the documents that you made previously and say, can you give me the 3 steps in our agenda section for our webinar? And then at the end, you're going to want them to keep them to the end so that they hear the pitch. But after the pitch, there'll be a live Q&A and exclusive bonuses for people who stay until the end. Then a meet your host section. Essentially, this is building credibility and authority on the offer owner and the person who's going to be presenting the webinar. What you also want to have is a lead magnet. So we run lead magnets across all of our webinars, which is typically an offer. These images and all of these landing pages are made with Lovable and made with AI, by the way. Typically, this is something that helps them get started with one of the main hurdles and main concerns people face regarding, the transformation that they're trying to achieve. And also what this should do, it should answer one question, but also really give them a lot of value and frame them well for the offer, frame them well for showing up to the webinar, encouraging them to show up to the webinar by nurturing them, by giving them as much information as possible. Then, of course, at the end of the landing page, you're going to want social proof and also a sticky button at the bottom of the page. You'll see across all of our landing page, we have a sticky button to register on the landing page, which takes them to a form like this. Now, this registration form is really cool. I've spoken a bit about it in a couple of other YouTube videos, but essentially, you can use Lovable, as you can see here. DM me Lovable on IG if you want a full guide on kind of how this works. I'm going to make one on YouTube soon. But essentially, you can autofill contact data from Instagram and from Facebook, so when you're running ads on Meta, to this form. And essentially, when they click on it, it just autofills all their information here, and they can claim their ticket, and it makes it super easier to register. We get way higher sign-up rates and way lower cost per lead. To make sure that this actually integrates with the tech side of things that you're going to be using for the webinar, which I'll be getting into in a minute, you're going to create this Zapier automation, which I'll get back to in a second when we cover the tech side of things. But just to clarify, after the registration page, you're going to need to send them to a thank you page. Typically, our thank you pages look like this, where it's like, make sure you don't close a page, your registration is not finished. You're going to have a thank you video, and you typically do need a video for this side of things, where it's going to be, where the offer owner is going to be saying, thank you for registering, but you need to do this, this, and this. And then reiterating what they're going to learn and why it's important for them to show up to the webinar. The things that the offer owner is going to be telling them in this video is going to be, make sure you join the WhatsApp group, and we'll get into this in the nurture system where they can get their lead magnet. Placing the lead magnet inside of the WhatsApp group always increases the join rate on the group. And then, of course, telling them to add the event to their calendar, checking their email that they got the event invite. And then if you have them, add your breakout videos on this landing page, which are FAQ videos, normally 60 to 90 seconds long, answering commonly asked questions on the offer to make sure those FAQs, the things that will prevent people from actually showing up to the webinar, are answered before they show up. Another thing we've been trying out across some clients when we're running meta ads is an order bump. So instead of sending them just to a thank you page, we're sending them to an order bump page like this, where we create an insanely valuable, like a crazy valuable, very cheap offer, limited time, expires in 10 minutes for $27, which essentially gives them a ton of free value. So, a group coaching call from the community, a couple of modules from the course, a completely free ebook, hiring templates, things like this that people value a lot coming into this niche that, will convert well and recoup some of our ad spend. Typically, we'll see 30 to 40% of ad spend recuperated from this kind of low ticket order bump. But what's even more important is the fact that you can optimize your meta pixel to only, in Conversions API to optimize for leads who buy. So you're optimizing for buyers, and typically someone who's going to buy a low ticket offer at $27 is higher intent, has a bigger budget, and is therefore going to be so much more likely to buy, and also so much more nurtured by the stuff they get in this $27 to then go ahead and purchase a 4K, a 5K, a 10K offer, or whatever that may look like. So this is something we're trialing across clients and has been working really well so far. Now, once you build all your landing pages, you're going to need to set up the tech behind them. And actually, the tech side of webinars is probably the easiest side. A lot of people get confused. When I started to run webinars, it confused the hell out of me. But there's only 4 tools that you really need. The first of which being Zapier, which is going to link everything up. The second is going to be Webinar Jam, which is where you're going to host your webinar. The third is going to be WhatsApp. Everyone probably already has WhatsApp. And then your CRM, which normally is going to be Go High Level or Close. Now, the first thing, when you set up your CRM, you're going to need to set up new pipelines. And with your new pipeline, typically you're going to have registered. So you're going to have your registered pipeline, your attended pipeline, your applied, if you're going to apply, if you have an application pipeline, and then your booked call pipeline. And then obviously one lost, and then, your pipeline, the kind of blocks that you have after your booked call anyway. So you're going to need to set up a quick pipeline like this: registered, attended, applied, and booked call. And then you're going to use Zapier and build these apps that I'm going to walk you through now to make sure everything is linked up. First of which, we're going to go back to the registered app. Now, with your registered app, it is very, very easy. You're going to ask Lovable to send a webhook with all of this information when someone clicks the claim their ticket button to Zapier. You're going to catch the webhook with Zapier, and then in your CRM, you're going to do find or create lead. So you're going to create a lead. You're going to make sure that they're in the correct pipeline. So you're going to add them to the webinar registered pipeline. As you can see here, we do the update lead, which does that for us. And then also what you're going to do is you're going to register them to a specific webinar. So through Webinar Jam, you're going to register them to the webinar. You're going to create a spreadsheet row where you can essentially add them to a Google Sheet with their name, email, phone number. And then you're also going to be able to see the UTM data here on the sheet. So exactly where they came from in the webinar. If you don't know how to set up UTMs, I'm going to be recording a full guide on kind of how to track this, how to set this up step by step very soon. And then also you're going to add them to a workflow. This is the email and SMS workflow that we use on GHL to warm up the leads and get them to show up. More on that in a second. So that is the registered Zap. Then you're also going to need an attended Zap. So essentially what this does is it's going to, as soon as they attend to the live webinar, it's going to update them inside of the CRM. So it's going to move them, in this case, we move them to the registered pipeline the attended pipeline. This is inside of Close because we use Close as our main kind of sales CRM. But if you're using GHL, you would simply update the pipeline to attended for that lead. Then you're going to need a Typeform Zap. Essentially, if you're running to an application, every time there's a new entry, you're going to obviously have to update the lead with the Typeform details and also update their pipeline and then send a notification into Slack. And then similarly, these are notifications you probably already have if you're running a VSL funnel, but you're also going to need a booked call automation for when an invitee is created, where you find the lead, you update the lead, you create an opportunity, and you send a Slack channel message. So those are literally the only 4 Zaps you need to make sure everything is synced up with your webinar. Then in terms of hosting the webinar on Webinar Jam, the first thing you do when you buy a Webinar Jam plan is verify A2P. So you have, so you're able to link it up with Zapier. If you wait on this, sometimes it takes a few days and your webinar can get delayed. And then you're simply going to create an event. Just add webinar, go ahead and create the event so that you can select that very event when you're linking up, when you're registering people for the webinar itself. Then you're also going to need to make a WhatsApp group. If you don't have a spare phone number for WhatsApp, head over to yourbusinessnumber.com to buy a WhatsApp business number. It's super easy, super quick to set up. And on that account, make sure you warm up the account a little bit. And on that account, make sure only you make a group chat where only admins can send messages and add people and change details. So, create a group name saying, this is the e-commerce, live masterclass, live workshop, live webinar. And then this invite link that you have should be in all of your emails, which I'll get into, and also should be the link that people click on here to join the WhatsApp group. It should route them straight into this group here. So that's that for tech setup. Now, launching. How do we actually get people to our landing page? So there are 3 typical ways you're going to obviously get people to your landing page. Well, actually 2, really: paid traffic and organic traffic. Now with paid traffic is what we're going to get into first. First of all, make sure you're using Lovable. So like I said, that data from Meta gets auto-filled. This is actually, like I said, something that Iman Gadji has been doing across his live event that he's been running at the start of 2026. If you're already running ad campaigns, you should use the AI documents that I mentioned at the start of the video to rewrite some of the winning ads that you're currently using, or even just stitching new CTAs on top of your current winning ads that CTA to the free workshop or masterclass. Then also you're going to have to write new webinar angles. Typically with Andromeda, the focus on ads is on high quality messaging, process-driven ads with specific callouts and targeting of your ICP. So to give you an example, if you're targeting people who are in corporate sales and you want to sell them on remote sales, you're going to be in the hook of your ad speaking about you're making 50K a year or you're making 100K a year in your corporate sales role, but you don't have freedom. So this ad automatically through that messaging is going to be shown to more and more people who are working high-level corporate sales roles and who want more freedom. Therefore, you're attracting the right ICP with that ad. Our strategy for webinars is testing a lot of angles like the one I just kind of gave an example of with statics so that we can do a lot of creative volume. And I'm going to show you some statics here and then double down on writing ads with those kind of winning statics based on kind of a test run webinar, a smaller campaign. Typically for ads, you're going to look for $3 to $10 per registration as a cost per lead. And in terms of setting up the ad set, You're going to want to put all of the ads in one ad set and focus, like I said, on messaging to attract the right type of leads. We have tested across one client in particular, with 2 different ad sets for more problem aware and more solution aware leads. So kind of higher quality leads here and more kind of B2C 9 to 5 leads here. And that has worked. But typically, if this is your first webinar, what I would highly recommend is running ads, because you can clean up all of your warm audience with just some very basic, very simple, even just static ads that you retarget on Instagram if it's the first webinar, and you're going to get an insane ROAS. And we've done that across a couple of clients already, just retargeting warm campaigns. But if you go to cold, you can try out having 2 different ad sets for problem aware and solution aware. Now, moving on from the paid side of things, if you're looking to obviously promote with warm traffic, you want to be sending emails to everyone. So essentially what we do is, with all of the emails that the offer owner has, we send out normally before the webinar some like warm-up emails, which are typically value-based and case study-based. And then when we actually promote the webinar itself, depending on how much we want to kind of use the warm audience, because sometimes we're more heavy on cold, we might even send them like a daily email promoting the webinar, or we might just send a couple of emails, miss out some of them, where we do obviously the first announcement. We hook them in with like, oh, you're getting free coaching on this webinar, value-dense emails, 24-hour, FOMO emails with different hooks. And then obviously we send them going live emails and 90 minutes until we go live emails as well in that email sequence. Then in terms of other organic promotion, what is amazing to do for your webinars is create a couple of YouTube videos in advance to promote it and have the link at the top of the description. You're also going to want to promote on Instagram if you use Instagram, X if you use X, with story sequences and reels. Our framework for Instagram story sequences looks a bit like this. So obviously a hook, normally about 1 slide, then some sort of story or storytelling, then proof, case studies, or proof of the offer owner doing the thing themselves, and then obviously a CTA to sign up for the webinar. Now, the CTA to sign up for the webinar, we actually say, DM me or reply to this story with the word live, and create a ManyChat automation that looks a lot like this, where essentially when they reply to the story, they get a message saying, yo, I'm glad to hear you want to sign up for the webinar. Click yes if you want the link. They click yes. And this is because when someone's just scrolling stories, the friction for them to click on a website, then sign up, is a lot higher than for them to just send a quick DM and then go back to their DMs where they'll find it when they are kind of in a less brain rot, in a less doom scrolling state. So we use the ManyChat automation plus a DM setter to get as many signups as possible. And with your sales team, you need to be telling every single old lead who has had a sales call and just not closed to re-engage all of those old leads and send them to the webinar. Now, just to show you some of the story sequences that we have been running across clients recently to promote their webinars, this is kind of the hook. AI and YouTube changed my life 3 years ago, and in 2025 I did the same for hundreds of students, leading heavily with the social proof, like literally just social proof throughout the entire sequence, and then revealing that on Saturday we're going to be showing the 3-pillar system to actually do this for yourself, and then ending with the CTA with obviously that reply with live, and they'll get the sign up link to show up. And we like to put like the image of the landing page itself on the story sequence so they know what they're going to be clicking on and what they're going to be getting. Then in terms of other story sequences, these are story sequences that we've ran for Luke Tran across his webinar. I'll let you screenshot if you want to, but this is kind of to give you an idea of the daily sequences, how you can promote a webinar organically through Instagram stories and get a ton of signups. After you launch, and after you have all of the text out though, you are going to need to make sure your webinar leads show up. And to do that, you're going to use this show up system that we've been using to get, around 30% show rate on cold traffic across some webinars and upwards of 50 to 60% on warm traffic webinars. First of all, you've got to understand why people don't show up to calls as well as webinars. Normally it's because they've got some sort of hidden objection in the back of their head. That might be, I don't think this is going to work for me. I think this is a scam. How do I set up my taxes when I start this business model? This isn't for me because I'm old. I don't have time for this. And you need to handle every single one of those objections if you want your lead to show up to your webinar through, first of all, those breakout videos that I mentioned you can put on the registration page, but through your emails and your SMS, and also inside of the WhatsApp group. And typically you want to look for 75+% conversion of registrants into the WhatsApp group. Your emails and SMS need to, like I said, handle common objections, remove doubts and limiting beliefs, show case studies and proof, and also remind them of the webinar. And remember, you are not selling the offer. You are not selling the offer with these emails. You're not selling the offer in the WhatsApp group. You are selling them only on showing up to the webinar. And this is our email flow that we use across all of our clients that you can model from. where essentially when they sign up, they get a confirmation email. 10 minutes later, they get the email saying, join the WhatsApp group, get the free lead magnet. Then the next day, this is kind of a daily cadence why you can't miss this. The offer owner story, agitating their core problems, future pacing them, an insider preview of what they're actually going to learn, an objection buster that helps them show up. Day before reminder, morning of reminder, 5 hours before, 2 hours before, 50 minutes before, live, 50 minutes after. Similarly, we have an SMS flow. And if you can do a WhatsApp flow as well, personal WhatsApp messages, not in the group, you can do that too, where essentially we do a confirmation message 24 hours before, 2 hours before, going live, and 15 minutes late. And how you set this up is inside of a GHL workflow. You can do this from a native email sender such as Beehive or ConvertKit as well, but GHL is normally easiest because essentially you can set an event start time. And when you set the event start time, then you do the email, then a wait step, which looks like this. So you set the event start time, you then send them that first email, and then you say, okay, wait, the next email should be sent 8 days before the event starts, then 7 days, then 6 days, then all the way down to 5 hours going live and all of that business. So these emails and SMS sequence, if you don't have them, no one is going to show up to your webinar because they're just going to forget. If you sign up to a webinar 6 days out, you're probably going to forget by the time it's the weekend. You're going to have people are busy, people have got a lot of stuff to do. So make sure you set this up correctly. And on top of that, if people miss these, you want to have the WhatsApp group. WhatsApp specifically, because WhatsApp is quite invasive. People are checking WhatsApp all the time. People communicate with their friends, with their family on WhatsApp. They're always on WhatsApp compared to emails where, you get hundreds of emails a day, some people. So you want to make sure that you hit WhatsApp hard. So you want to do polls to survey attendees. This is especially important on cold traffic because with cold traffic, you want to know, okay, am I actually attracting the right people? And so using polls inside of the WhatsApp group can help you do this. You want to send them the link to add the event to their calendar. You want to send them a link to case studies, valuable long form videos, the lead magnet as well, and then also get the offer owner or whoever's presenting the webinar to send voice notes and videos very, very frequently, literally every day inside of that WhatsApp group, answering frequently asked questions, building hype and showing authenticity. And then after the webinar, you can actually have a setter on this account. Even before the webinar, you can have a setter on the account to answer questions. And also you're going to use the webinar WhatsApp account after the webinar in the follow-up process to, CTA to the actual program that you're selling. Another thing that you can do with ads is implement hammer them ads. Now, hammer them ads are essentially ads with no CTA, ads that are just pure value, pure education to warm up cold leads. This is especially good if you're running to cold traffic to replicate the organic sales process. So you're literally giving pure value. You're answering common objections and building trust. They look like normal reels. They have no CTAs. Typically, you do this in a separate separate campaign, with 3% of the total ad spend that you plan on running for the webinar. We typically allocate 3% to hammer them ads, and you're setting this up as a traffic campaign, not a lead campaign. And you're only, of course, including the custom audience of emails of those who have registered to your webinar that you can find inside a Webinar Jam or your Google Sheet. Typically, you want to add at least 15 plus hammer them ads. You want to have as many as possible inside of the ad set so they frequently see, different ads that are just nurturing them organically. Well, not organically, but as if it was organic to your method, to what you're going to be presenting on the webinar. Now, the presentation is by far the most important part of the webinar. You could do everything right, but the biggest lever, the biggest, leverage you have on the webinar is having an amazing script and an amazing presentation. Now, if it's your first time writing a webinar, what you've got to understand is webinar presentations can be separated into 3 stages, that being the introduction, the training, and the pitch. The introduction typically lasts about 15 minutes, training 40, 45 minutes, and the pitch is probably 15 to 20 minutes, and after that you have the Q&A and anything else you want to cover on the webinar. Now, these 3 pillars can be then further broken down into a 14-step framework. This is Jason Fladley Frameworks. It's not my framework, so obviously I don't take credit, but this framework is absolutely the best. If you try and deviate from this framework, you're probably going to end up fucking things up. So to make sure that your webinar is good, use this. So first of all, we have to have a hook. We need an introduction that grabs our audience's attention immediately and creates pattern interrupt from what they were expecting. Because some people will show up to a webinar, they'll see the email, and they'll be, I'll show up to this. And if you can't hook them in straight away, they won't stay. Then after your hook, you're going to want to go into the pain portion of the webinar. You need to be able to wake your audience up from the nightmare. People attend a webinar normally because they're in pain. They want something, they're missing something. So you need to be able to wake them up from this nightmare and actually, assess that they are in a pain before you can sell them the dream, right? And people are much more motivated to act and buy your offer or book a call if they're getting away from painful situations rather than moving towards positive situations. After the pain points, you're going to tease about the actual mechanisms and what they're actually here for. What are they going to walk away from the webinar with? So this will be those 3 pillars of training that you're going to teach on the webinar. You're going to then future pace them on the positives of, that come out of applying kind of what these 3 mechanisms are. This is what you're going to be able to achieve. You're going to be able to do this. You're going to be able to do this. Obviously, don't say they're going to become millionaires, but make sure you excite them and future pace them effectively. Then position. Why is the presenter, why is the offer owner actually the one who can actually teach them this? So making sure that they believe in the offer owner, because when people buy it, they need to believe in three things. They need to believe in themselves, they need to believe in the offer owner or you, and they need to believe in the method. So make sure that you convey why you are uniquely positioned to be able to help these people. And then before the training starts, you have one more thing, which is a paradigm shift, where you shift their beliefs right before the training starts to hook them back in and get them ready to learn and take notes. Now, in terms of your mechanisms, you're going to have your three kind of pillars to your offer, three kind of pillars to what you're actually going to be teaching them. And for each mechanism, you're going to, train for about 10 or 15 minutes, showing them what it is, what is the mechanism, what happens when you don't have this, why does it matter, how to implement it, a success example, and then getting their commitment that, okay, I can see how I can do this and I can see why it's important. And then this is for like after each mechanism. And then at the end of all of the mechanisms, at the end of all of the training, as you transition over to the pitch, you want to get their commitment again, making sure that they feel that they're in a better position to succeed, making sure that they know that or feel that the training was valuable, making sure that they're actually going to be implementing this and that they know that this is the right thing for them to do. Then during the transition, you're not going to do a bait and switch. You're not going to say, all right, now buy my fucking 997 course. No, you're going to build the gap. You're going to say, you can do this yourself, but it's going to take a lot of time, a lot of effort. These are the common pitfalls. You're here now, but this is where you want to be. We can't cover everything on a 90-minute class, but there is an option where we work together, where I help you, where I guide you through every step of the way. And then that's when you introduce your offer. And when you do your offer, please do not make it ridiculously long. Don't make your pitch crazy, stupid long. Show the core deliverables. And typically these are going to be, one-on-one coaching, group calls, a community, a course, and that side of things. Don't be tempted to stack all your bonuses and then price drop and then, CTA. You want to stack your core offer. You're going to drop the price. Typically on high ticket webinars, we don't drop price. Typically we say you need at least 4 figures to invest in this. This is a premium coaching program. If that's you, then this is for you. You can book a call. But typically in your price drop sequence, you're going to say, what it's worth to me, what others have gained from, case studies in terms of working and joining the program, what others normally charge, which is like other people normally charge this amount. Normally I charge this amount, but on this webinar, we're doing a special offer with X amount of discount. And then after that, you're going to do a CTA. Then you're going to go into your bonuses, and your bonuses should be, like I said, even more valuable than the core offer itself. Your bonuses are going to be stacked up, bonus 1, bonus 2, bonus 3, bonus 4. And then after that, so if the core offer wasn't enough for you, anyone that applies today is going to be getting these bonuses. So you're going to do another CTA here. Then you're going to obviously use scarcity. So these bonuses are only for the first X amount of people, or we only have X amount of spaces. And after that, do another CTA. Then you're going to mention your offer guarantee or the worst case scenario of working with you and do another CTA. And then after all of those CTAs, you're going to do FAQs and open the floor up to a Q&A with the chat, where essentially all of the questions that you're going to be getting in the chat are going to be questions that kind of your prospects have in regards to the offer that you can handle live. And these are essentially objections that you can handle live in front of hundreds of people. And when you answer these questions in the chat, always relate back to the offer and how it will help solve their problem, dropping in CTAs here and there before you then do a final close, which is like, okay, guys, this is what we covered today. This is what you've learned. Just to recap on our offer, make sure you go ahead and do X, Y, Z and the CTA and book a call or whatever you want them to do at the end of the training. And just to show you kind of the different flows of what things look like after a webinar and where you CTA to, your type form setup will typically look something like this, where you obviously ask for their details, you ask for their current situation, their goal or desired situation, and then we have a qualifying budget question. So to basically essentially, if they have these three, if they answer one of these three, they get routed to Calendly. If they have less than $1,000, then a setter will call them up, look to downsell, or they'll be sent to a direct checkout page for a downsell. We also have a last question, which is like, okay, you're going to be sent to book a call. Will you book in a call? And obviously anyone that finishes the type form, gets sent to the Calendly page and doesn't book in, we have a team of setters calling them up, and I'm going to get into that in a second. But essentially, you can either go straight to a Calendly, to a type form, back to a Calendly, and then to the cash, or you can have like a checkout page. Our ones look similar to this. And then collect the cash there and then. And by the way, if you want to have literally all of our landing pages, see the back end of all of our webinars, have my exact systems that I use for my team to run webinars like this for our clients, then there's a link in the description to my licensing offer. And if you're a coach who wants this, you don't have time to implement all of this for your own coaching offer, you want us to come in done for you and do this for you, then again, there's a link for you in the description with a little VSL explaining kind of what my agency does. Now, sales. Very, very important, because you need a very good team of dialers if you want to make the most out of a webinar. The dialer's priorities, like in terms of what they need to be doing, is number one, triaging all of the booked leads. Webinars are typically a pretty manic time. There's a lot of leads booking in, blah, blah, blah. So the dialers need to be triaging leads and getting all the unqualified leads off the calendar as soon as possible. Then, after they've gone through the wave of triaging book leads, you're going to want to call all of the applications that didn't book in, because there are people who will have applied through Typeform and just simply not booked in a call. So you're going to call them and get as many of them on a call as possible if they're qualified. Then obviously calling the attendees who didn't apply. And what I like to do for our webinars is essentially we export from the Webinar Jam analytics section a CSV of all of the attendees, upload that onto a Google Sheet, send that to the dialing team. And what I do is I filter by time in the live room. So all of the leads who spend the most time in the room are obviously the warmest. They've seen the pitch, they've seen everything, and the setters will call from top to bottom. After that, we'll also call all of the unqualified Typeforms between these, and then also, all of the leads that signed up, because we do still have their phone number, and see if it's worth sending them the replay or getting them on a call. So that's kind of the dialing team. And then obviously, like I mentioned, a replay, without a good replay system, you're literally leaving, 30 to 40% of revenue on the table. And using this system that I'm going to show you now is going to allow you to capture that revenue. For example, one of my licensing and consultant clients, Kala and his business partner made $88,000 in a single month with their info agency, with their growth operating agency, working with me, because they ran a webinar for one of their clients that did $207,000 in cash collected over 2 weeks. You can see here kind of the graph. They had, 20K days, mostly sitting around like 15K days after the first webinar. But using the follow-up system here, you can see we had like even bigger peaks the week after, and even like, 10 days after the webinar, they were still hitting crazy days because of the follow-up system that we're going to talk about now. So the first thing is a replay page. You need a replay page where essentially you have your headline, your subheadline, and then the webinar replay itself. Typically, you want to make this unskippable. And the reason for that is because if someone is coming in and they just want to, skip around, get the value, and not even see the offer, they're typically not going to convert as well as someone who's been forced to sit and watch the whole webinar as if it was live without being able to skip. And then you're going to have, after that, your CTA. So whether that be to check out, you would then link them to a checkout page after they finish watching the pitch, or you would have your Typeform or your Calendly linked underneath, not in the description, underneath the webinar replay, where people can apply and go ahead and book in a call. And you can almost use the webinar replay like a lead magnet on your socials and send people to the replay if they couldn't make the live event. Now, like I said, inside of that WhatsApp group, you're going to do CTAs to the replay. You're going to do CTAs to apply. You're going to mention the bonuses and the discount you offered with the FOMO. You're going to use a ton of client results, essentially making sure that all of those, hundreds of people that you have access to their phone books to notify them on their phones of your offer. You're doing that as best as you can. And then also you're sending 3 different email sequences. The first of which to being everyone who didn't show, mentioning the fact that there's a replay available, that you've made an offer with bonuses, and a CTA to actually go ahead and take the action that you want them to take, which whether that be apply or book in a call. You're going to send a separate email sequence of 3 to 4 emails to those who attended but didn't apply or didn't take the action you want them to, saying, hey, this is a recap of our offer, book in a call or apply here. The next day you're going to send, hey, catch what you missed. If you couldn't make the whole thing, here's the replay. And then you're obviously going to do some FOMO and scarcity with some last chance CTAs. And then everyone that applied through Typeform but was disqualified, you can send them an email regarding your low ticket offer and also have your setters phoning those leads. Final thing, tracking. You need to track data. This is an example sheet that you can kind of use to track the key metrics. Now, in terms of like the baselines of or what you want to be aiming for, I've kind of collected that in kind of data here. So if you're running ads, typically you need like over 1% click-through rate on your ads. You want to look for between $1 and $5 cost per click with a 30% opt-in rate on your landing page. So kind of sign-up rate, which will give you between a $3 and $15 or $4 to $12 cost per lead or cost per registration. On cold traffic, you want at least a 20% show rate, but on warm traffic, you can look for 40, 50, 60% show rate. Your retention rate of your webinar, which is essentially, okay, how many people showed up, but how many people were actually there at the pitch. Typically, you want this to be above 60 to 70%. You want to be pitching like the most amount of people possible. If this is low, you just have a shit webinar or a non-engaging webinar or something that people aren't actually interested in once they show up. Your application rate of people that were there at the pitch should be at least 30%. And then your booking rate on top of applications should be around 30%. If you're selling direct checkout, this really just depends in terms of what your conversion rate is. It can be anywhere from like 1% all the way up to 5 or 10%, depending on the offer. But on your actual sales calls themselves, you want at least 75% show rate and 30% close rate. And tracking this data week in, week out, especially when you're running ads, is going to give you the exact information you need to know which bottleneck you need to fix to keep scaling your webinars to scale to, 250K plus a month with your offer, like we are doing for our clients inside of the agency. So that's it. That is literally everything that we do, that my team uses to run webinars for our clients that have made, over $1 million, whether that be licensing or consultant clients or my own clients in the last 5 months. Like I said, if you want to license these systems and have like one-on-one consulting with me on webinars, if you're a growth operator looking to learn webinars and implement them for your clients, and even sell webinars for 5K plus 7K plus setup fees, or if you're a coach who wants us to do this done for you, then like I said, 2 links in the description for those. Be sure to connect with me on Instagram as well. And hope you took at least some value away from this video. My throat's beginning to hurt a bit. And peace.